Hi there, my name is Nino Zama and this is my ANC Talk, and today we are discussing Economic Transformation Commission, and our guest in the studio is Malusi Gigaba, who is a member of Economic Transformation. Welcome to my ANC Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you can just give us more information on some of the resolutions that were taken by this Economic Transformation Commission.
The Commission resolutions, the Commission recommendations have now become conference decisions. So the conference has agreed, among others, that we need to strengthen the role of the state in the economy by increasing public ownership, state ownership in certain strategic sectors, including based on the balance of evidence where deemed appropriate. Now, that means that the issue of nationalization falls off the table, because the conference is of the view that the historic positions of the ANC are actually correct. The ANC has always believed that that we are striving towards a mixed economy, that you need a strong public sector, including a strong private sector, and as well as social forms of capital, such as cooperatives and so on. Now, in that regard, we believe that we shouldn't have a policy that aims at nationalizing, but we should have a policy where wherever it's deemed appropriate, the state should play a role. This happens even at the present moment with regard to the state-owned companies in infrastructure-related activities. But we are also going to create a state bank through using the post bank. Now, in this instance, the state is participating in strategic sectors to try and correct market failures, because we view that these sectors are strategic. But we are not saying we will nationalize all the banks. Similarly, furthermore, the conference agreed that insofar as mining is concerned, we will support the decisions that the recommendations of the policy conference insofar as the resources rent tax, insofar as beneficiation, as well as strengthening the state-owned mining company. Now, the state-owned mining company is in the process of creation. It will also participate through equitable share, taking equity in various other mining companies, so that we increase the participation of the state to increase the resources available for the state to implement the developmental programs. We've also agreed as the Commission to look at the resolutions of the Presidential Review Committee on State-Owned Enterprises and Development Finance Institutions and begin to implement those, to restructure the institutional architecture of state-owned companies and address the issues of the policy framework that governs the state-owned companies. In relation to youth unemployment, we agreed that there must be an incentive to facilitate youth employment, because the conference viewed the issue of youth unemployment as very urgent. We've appealed on the government itself, the private sector, the trade unions, as well as the youth sector, to understand the urgency of now, the high rate of unemployment among youth, and to therefore commit themselves to agreeing to a social pact that will determine the type of this youth employment incentive that as a country we must implement, so that we get the youth off idleness into employment so that they become productive. In relation to land, the conference agreed on completing the audit of public land. We agreed on establishing the office of the Valuer General, because we believe that market-related prices, insofar as land reform are concerned, make it impossible for us to implement land reform. we are going to pursue land reform policies that do not hamper or inhibit or impact negatively on productive agriculture as well as food security. But that being said, the conference has agreed that the willing seller, willing buyer principle must be done away with and replaced with a just and equitable principle, where you have the valuer general being able to assist in determining the right prices for the state, so that we don't get ripped off by the farmers or other owners of land. The conference also agreed that land owned by foreigners. So as a matter of principle, South Africa must never sell land to foreigners, but rather we should convert their ownership into leaseholds and determine a time frame during which they must own this land, after which the land reverts back to the state. So we've adopted a package of policies.
Can we go back to the land issue of foreigners owning it? Is this resolution going to be impacting on everybody, every foreigner who owns land in South Africa, or it's going to affect the new ones who are planning to buy land?
It's going to affect all the foreigners who own land. That's why we say we must convert ownership, present ownership, into leasehold. So that we don't have an instance where a part of our land is owned eternally by somebody who neither lives in South Africa nor owes allegiance to the country, except to the extent that they own land in the country.
Okay, and what was the posture of the Commission around the issue of the youth wage subsidy? Did it even come up?
I've mentioned it, that the conference agreed on a youth incentive. Now, we didn't want to call it a youth wage subsidy. We didn't want to call it a youth employment subsidy. We've just called it a youth employment incentive. The nature of that incentive must be the product of the social pact between government, labor, business, and the youth sector itself, so that you don't lock yourself into an agreement before you even start discussing. Government has already placed on the table its own proposals in this regard, and they are currently being discussed at NEDLAC. What the conference has appealed on is for these different sectors, social partners, to exercise urgency in finding resolution and finality on this matter. The present situation of youth unemployment is untenable and unacceptable. We all need to understand that the longer we continue to deliberate and discuss and pontificate about this, the longer we sustain the unemployment of young people. We must remember that the level of youth unemployment in South Africa has been at this high level for over 20 years. That is unsustainable. It's unproductive for South Africa, doesn't benefit our country in any possible way.
Okay, and then the issue of also stimulating our economy by moving towards a proudly South African attitude on manufacturing and job creation. Does this in any way, how is it going to impact on our relationship with China, for instance?
You know, it's not going to impact on our relationship with China in any possible way. In actual fact, South Africa needs to industrialize. And part of how we will industrialize, and that's why the conference adopted the proposal that the macroeconomic framework, we support it. But we want the macroeconomic framework to place greater emphasis on industrialization and programs that promote job creation and other such activities. Because what we want is to industrialize our country. In industrializing our country, we will have to rely on various policy instruments, such as the Industrial Policy Action Plan, the Competitive Supplier Development Program, as well as the Localization Program, which the state-owned companies are implementing. That is why we therefore need to promote South African products. We need to ensure, the conference even took a resolution that any ANC national conference, the paraphernalia in all our conferences must be South African products so that we promote our own goods, production and manufacturing in our own country. And that is going to change our relationship with the world, not only with China, but with the rest of the world. Because at the present moment, what we do, what we are known of, the relationship we have with the world is as a producer of primary commodities, raw minerals, which we dig out from the mines, put them on the train, send them to the port, out of the country they go. They come back as refrigerators, as microwaves, and various other value-added goods. What we now want to do is to use the policy instruments in government to support industrialization and localization, both the carrot and the stick. We need the private sector to cooperate with us to beneficiate and industrialize the country. We need the private sector to support localization, but we will also use the law, the stick, in order to enforce industrialization and localization if and when we deem it necessary and we realize that there is no cooperation from the private sector. In that way, South Africa will then be able to diversify its economy and then diversify the market destinations for our products and increase intra-African trade. Because the main prohibitor to intra-African trade is the fact that virtually all African countries are producers and exporters of primary commodities, and therefore we lose a lot of money. We are unable to develop skills because of that fact.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
Okay, and that was Malusi Gigaba, member of Economic Transformation Committee, talking to us about the Economic Transformation Commission, which took place in this conference. And that's how we end it. I'm Nino Zama, and this is my ANC Talk. Thank you for watching.